The price of always wanting to be one step ahead. That was the sentence that Nikola Tesla signed with his own blood when he decided that the world needed to change before it was ready for it. New York, 1905. Tesla's laboratory on Houston Street burned in orange flames that licked the night sky like the tongues of a hungry demon. Years of work, unique prototypes, irreplaceable notes, all turned to ash as he watched, motionless from across the street. His eyes didn't blink. His hands didn't shake. Only a lone tear ran down his thin face, evaporating before touching the icy ground. A firefighter ran up to him, shouting at him to stay away. Tesla didn't move. "Sir, are you okay? Sir." Tesla finally turned his face. There was something in his eyes that made the fireman flinch. It wasn't desperation. It wasn't anger. It was something deeper. It was the look of a man who already knew this would happen. "They finally did it," muttered Tesla, so quietly that his words were lost in the roar of the flames. That night, as the fire consumed decades of genius, Tesla carried a secret that no one knew. A secret that would explain why, even in the face of total destruction, he didn't try to save anything. Why did he just watch? But to understand this moment, we need to go back in time. We need to understand what Tesla saw, and why seeing too much may be the greatest curse a human being can bear. 30 years earlier, in 1875, a young Tesla walked the streets of Graz, Austria, with his eyes fixed on something no one else could see. He was in his early 20s, but he was already carrying the weight of visions that had tormented him since childhood. These were no ordinary hallucinations. They were complete blueprints. Whole machines appeared before him with such clarity that he could count every screw, every gear, every thread. On that particular afternoon, he stopped in the middle of the central square. People swerved around him, irritated. A fruit seller shouted at him to get out of the way. Tesla heard nothing. Before his eyes, rotating in perfect harmony, was an engine, but not just any engine. An engine that worked without brushes, without sparks, without the destructive friction that limited all machines of the time. An alternating current motor. Tesla fell to his knees right there, in the middle of the square, and began drawing on the dirt floor with his fingers. The people around stopped. Some laughed. Others walked away in fear. A police officer approached, thinking he was having a seizure. "Sir, do you need help?" Tesla looked up, and there was an almost supernatural glow in them. "I need a laboratory," he said. "I just solved the problem that will change the world." The policeman shook his head and walked away, muttering about crazy people and vagabonds. Tesla remained there for another hour, mentally refining every detail of the vision. When he finally got up, he was absolutely sure of two things. First, that his invention would work perfectly. Second, that the world was not prepared for it. He didn't know how much this second certainty would cost. The following years were a race against time, and against human nature itself. Tesla worked in Paris, in Strasbourg, always demonstrating his ideas to men who shook their heads condescendingly. "Interesting," they said, "but impractical. Very advanced. Maybe in the future. Always in the future. Never now." In 1884, Tesla made the decision that would change his life forever. He sold everything he owned, bought a ship ticket, and left for the United States with 4 cents in his pocket, some poems he had written, and a letter of recommendation to the most powerful man in the world of electricity, Thomas Edison. The letter said, "I know 2 great men. You are one of them. This young man is the other." Tesla arrived in New York with a heart full of hope. Here, he thought, people would understand. Here, innovation was celebrated, not feared. He couldn't be more mistaken. The first meeting between Tesla and Edison took place at the Edison Machine Works office in Manhattan. Tesla entered holding his drawings as if they were sacred relics. Edison was sitting behind a desk covered in papers, eating an apple and barely looking at his visitor. "So you're the Serb," said Edison without getting up. "I hear you have ideas about alternating current." "Yes, sir. I have developed a complete system that—" "Alternating current is garbage," interrupted Edison, still chewing. "Dangerous, impractical, useless. Direct current is the future. That's what we're building here." Tesla felt the blood rush to his face, but he controlled himself. "With all due respect, Mr. Edison, direct current has fundamental limitations. It cannot be transmitted over long periods of time, distances without huge losses. My system solves this completely." Edison finally looked at him. There was something in his eyes. It wasn't curiosity. It wasn't interest. It was calculation. The kind of look a poker player gives when he's assessing how much he can extract from a naive opponent. "You know what?" said Edison, throwing the rest of the apple in the trash. "I have a problem with my dynamos. They are inefficient, burning out, making losses. If you can improve them, I'll pay you $50,000. $50,000. A fortune. Enough for Tesla to build his own laboratory, develop his own inventions, prove to the world that he was right. Tesla accepted immediately. What he didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that Edison never intended to pay that money. That promise was bait, and Tesla had just bitten the hook. During the following months, Tesla worked like a man possessed. He slept in the laboratory, sometimes just 2 hours a night. He completely redesigned Edison's dynamos, increasing their efficiency dramatically. He created 24 different types of machines. It saved the company thousands of dollars. When he finally presented the results to Edison, he was sure he would be rewarded. He was sure that now Edison would see his value. Edison looked over the reports in silence. Then he looked at Tesla and laughed. $50,000? He said, still laughing. Tesla, you don't understand American humor. The world stopped. Tesla stood there, standing, as the words penetrated his consciousness like blades of ice. Months of work, sleepless nights, promises made and broken as if they were nothing. You promised me, said Tesla, his voice shaking. I have witnesses. Edison shrugged. If you want a raise, we can talk about $10 more a week, but 50,000, please. At that moment, something changed inside Nikola Tesla. Something broke, or maybe it got stronger. He looked at Edison, and for the first time he understood with crystal clarity what he was fighting against. It wasn't just one man, it was an entire system, a world that rewarded cunning over genius, manipulation over innovation, power over truth. Tesla turned his back and walked to the door. Before leaving, he stopped. You're going to regret this, he said without turning around. Not because of me, because of what could have been. Edison did not respond. He just went back to his papers, as if Tesla had already ceased to exist. Outside, on the dirty New York street, Tesla took a deep breath. He had no money, no job, no allies, but he had something Edison would never have, a vision of the future so clear, it was almost like memory. And Tesla knew that the future always wins. Always. Chatter. If you are feeling the weight of this story, if something inside you recognizes this conflict between vision and resistance, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what comes next changed not just Tesla's life, but the destiny of all humanity. The months that followed were the most brutal of Tesla's life. The man who had redesigned Edison's dynamos, who carried in his mind inventions capable of transforming civilizations, now dug ditches in the streets of New York for $2 a day. Every blow with the pick was a humiliation. Every aching muscle was a reminder of what Edison had done. Tesla worked alongside immigrants who barely spoke English, men who had never heard of alternating current, of rotating magnetic fields, of wireless power transmission. And there he was, one of the greatest geniuses the world has ever produced, with calloused hands and a broken back, being paid less than a baggage handler. But Tesla didn't complain, not for others at least. At night, in the tiny room he rented in a Lower East Side tenement, he continued working, with no equipment, no materials, nothing but paper and the dim light of a candle. Tesla drew, engine after engine, system after system. Every diagram was perfect, every calculation was precise. He didn't need a laboratory to create. His laboratory was his own mind. It was during one of these nights, with his fingers stained with ink and his eyes burning with exhaustion, that Tesla made a decision that would define the rest of his life. He wasn't just going to prove Edison wrong, it would make it obsolete. And the opportunity came from where Tesla least expected it. One of the foremen on the construction team where he worked was a man named Alfred Brown, an engineer who had left a promising career to invest in new technologies. Brown had been watching Tesla for weeks. The way he behaved, the way he spoke, the way he seemed to always be thinking about something far beyond those dirty ditches. One day during his lunch break, Brown approached. "You are no ordinary worker," he said bluntly. "Who are you?" Tesla hesitated. He had been ridiculed so many times that he had learned to keep his ideas to himself, but there was something in Brown's eyes, a genuine curiosity that Tesla hadn't seen in a long time. "I am an inventor," replied Tesla. "I have an alternating current system that can light entire cities at a fraction of the cost of direct current." Brown didn't laugh. He didn't shake his head. "I didn't say it was impractical. Show me," was all he said. That night, in Tesla's shabby apartment, Brown saw the drawings, saw the calculations, and when Tesla finished explaining how the system worked, Brown was silent for a long moment. "This will change the world," he said finally. "I know," Tesla replied. "I always knew." Brown introduced Tesla to a lawyer named Charles Peck, and together they founded the Tesla Electric Company. Finally, after years of humiliation and rejection, Tesla had what he needed, resources to build his machines and prove to the world that he was right. But while Tesla was preparing for his rise, Edison was preparing for something very different. Thomas Edison was not just an inventor. He was a businessman, a strategist, a mind manipulator. And And when he heard rumors that his former employee was developing a rival electrical distribution system, he immediately understood what was at stake. It wasn't just money, although there were millions at stake. It was control. It was power. It was the right to determine how humanity would use electricity for decades to come. And Edison wasn't willing to lose that to anyone, much less for a Serbian immigrant he had discarded like trash. The first phase of Edison's plan was simple: discredit alternating current. Make the public associate it not with progress, but with danger, with death. Edison began holding public demonstrations in which he electrocuted animals with alternating current: dogs, cats, horses. He invited journalists, neighbors, anyone who wanted to watch. "Look," he said, as the animals convulsed and died, "that's alternating current. That's what Tesla wants to put in your homes." The demonstrations were grotesque, cruel, scientifically dishonest. Direct current was equally lethal at the same voltages, but Edison didn't care about the truth. He cared about perception, and the perception was working. Newspapers began publishing stories about the deadly dangers of alternating current. Mothers wrote worried letters. Politicians demanded regulation. The word Westinghouse, a reference to George Westinghouse, who had purchased Tesla's patents, became synonymous with electrocution. Tesla followed all this with a mixture of horror and disbelief, not because of what Edison was doing to the animals, although that deeply disgusted him, but for what Edison was doing with the truth. It was twisting her, deforming her, turning her into a weapon. "How can he do that?" Tesla asked Westinghouse during a tense meeting. "He knows he's lying. He knows alternating current is safe." Westinghouse, an experienced businessman who had faced many corporate battles, looked at Tesla with an expression that mixed pity and pragmatism. "He doesn't care about the truth, Nikola. He cares about winning. They're different things." Tesla shook his head, unable to process this logic. "But the truth always wins in the end," he said. Westinghouse did not respond. And in that silence, Tesla felt something he hadn't felt since leaving Edison's office: fear. The war was just beginning. Edison, realizing that animal demonstrations were not enough, decided to escalate his tactics. He needed something bigger, something that would permanently engrave in the public's mind the association between alternating current and death. It was then that the idea of the electric chair came up. Edison didn't invent the electric chair. That distinction belongs to a dentist named Alfred Southwick, but Edison saw it as a perfect opportunity. If the state of New York adopted the electric chair as a method of execution, and if that chair ran on alternating current, then Tesla's technology would forever be associated with the death of criminals. It was brilliant. It was diabolical. It was exactly the kind of scam Edison loved. Behind the scenes, Edison worked tirelessly to ensure the electric chair used alternating current. He financed research, paid lobbyists, wrote articles, and when William Kemmler, a convicted murderer from Buffalo, was chosen to be the first person executed in the electric chair, Edison knew he had won. The execution had happened on August 6, 1890. It was a disaster. The first discharge did not kill Kemmler. He moaned, convulsed, but remained alive. The doctors present panicked. The second discharge lasted more than a minute. The smell of burning flesh filled the room. Blood oozed from Kemmler's pores. When he finally finished, one of the doctors present vomited. A reporter who attended the execution wrote, "They would have done it better with an axe." Edison, when he learned the details, showed no remorse. In fact, he used the horror of execution as yet another weapon. "Look what alternating current does," he told reporters. "It's savage. It's inhumane." He did not mention that he was the one who ensured that the chair used this technology specifically to create this association. Tesla learned of Kemmler's execution through the newspapers. He read every detail with an expression his assistants had never seen before. It wasn't anger. It wasn't sadness. It was something colder, deeper. When he finished reading, Tesla folded the newspaper carefully and placed it on the table. "He turned my invention into an instrument of torture," Tesla said, his voice barely audible. "You used it to kill a man in the worst way possible, and you did it to destroy me." That night, Tesla did not sleep, didn't work. He just sat in his dark room, staring into space, thinking. There was a detail about Edison that no one knew, a secret that Tesla had discovered by accident during his time at the Edison Machine Works, something that could destroy Edison's reputation completely. Tesla had never used this information. He had never even mentioned that he had it, because Tesla believed that truth should win on its own merits, not through blackmail or manipulation. But now, sitting in that dark room, with the imaginary smell of burning flesh filling his nostrils, Tesla began to wonder if his beliefs were a luxury he could still afford. The world did not play by the rules that Tesla thought were fair. Maybe it was time to change the rules. Meanwhile, Edison was not satisfied. Kemmler's execution had created horror, but it had not destroyed alternating current. Westinghouse continued to sell systems. Cities continued to sign contracts. Tesla's technology continued to spread. Edison needed a final blow, something that would end the war once and for all. And then the perfect opportunity arose. The 1893 Chicago World's Fair. The fair would be the biggest event of the century. Millions of people from all over the world would come to see the future of humanity, and the contract to light the fair was the most coveted prize in the business world. Edison desperately wanted this contract. With it, he could demonstrate to the world that direct current was superior. It could bury Tesla and Westinghouse once and for all. But there was a problem. Westinghouse also wanted the contract, and thanks to the efficiency of alternating current, he could offer it for less than half the price of Edison. The war had reached its decisive moment, and only one side would emerge victorious. What no one knew, not Edison, not Westinghouse, not the Fair Committee, was that Tesla had planned something for that opening night, something no one expected, something that would change the way humanity viewed electricity forever. And this plan had a price that Tesla did not yet fully understand. George Westinghouse was on the brink of ruin. Edison's attacks had worked. Investors abandoned the company. Banks refused loans. The word Westinghouse had become synonymous with death. In 1891, Westinghouse summoned Tesla to a meeting in Pittsburgh. "Nikola, I'm going to lose everything. The only way to save the company is to cut costs. And the biggest cost I have is the royalties I owe you." Tesla's contract guaranteed millions in royalties, a fortune that would make him one of the richest men in the world. "I'm asking you to give up royalties, permanently. If you don't, the company will go bankrupt." Edison wins. Tesla thought about the years of work, the humiliations, the $50,000 that Edison never paid, and then he thought of something bigger, of the cities that would be illuminated by his invention. He extended his hand. "Give me the contract." Westinghouse delivered the document. Tesla looked at the paper worth millions and tore it in half. "Alternating current will change the world. This is more important than money." At that moment, Tesla sealed his fate. He would be remembered as a genius, but he would die poor. With his finances stabilized, Westinghouse focused on the Chicago World's Fair, the final battle. Edison offered $554,000 to light the fair. Westinghouse offered $399,000. Westinghouse won. Edison was furious, refused to sell light bulbs, spread moods of disaster, predicted death. But Tesla wasn't worried about Edison. The fair would be his chance to show the world that electricity was magic. Tesla moved to Chicago, sleeping 3 hours a night. But what really consumed him was a secret plan. At night, alone in the dark pavilions, he built a demonstration that would make Edison swallow every lie. Tesla would pass 200,000 volts through his own body, and he wouldn't die. I wouldn't feel pain, because he understood something that Edison would never understand. It wasn't the voltage that killed, it was the amperage. Using specific frequencies, it could pass energy through the human body without causing harm. For the public, it would be magic. As Tesla prepared, an Edison spy brought the information. "Tesla will pass 200,000 volts through his own body. I saw the equipment." Edison understood immediately. If Tesla managed this, the entire fear campaign would have been for nothing. "Find a way to change the equipment," Edison said. "Something subtle." The spy turned pale. "Sir, if something goes wrong." "I know. That's exactly the point." For the first time, Edison considered murder. Opening night approached. Tesla worked unaware of the danger in the shadows. A decision was being made. A decision that would determine whether Tesla would live to see the future he had created. The night of May 1st, 1893 arrived with a tension that electrified the Chicago air. More than 100,000 people crowded at the gates of the World's Fair, awaiting the moment when President Grover Cleveland would press the button that would light up the White City. Tesla was behind the scenes, making final adjustments. His hands moved with precision, but inside he felt something rare: anxiety. What no one knew was that Edison's spy had accomplished his mission. 3 nights earlier, he had infiltrated the pavilion and altered one of the frequency regulators. A minimal change, almost imperceptible, but enough to turn Tesla's demonstration into a public execution. At 8 o'clock at night, Cleveland pressed the button, and White City exploded into light. 100,000 light bulbs lit up simultaneously. The crowd fell into reverent silence and then erupted into applause and tears. Never had so many people seen so much light at the same time. Tesla watched from afar, tears in his eyes. Alternating current was lighting up the future. Edison had lost, but the night was not over yet. An hour later, Tesla took the stage at the Electricity Pavilion. The room was packed. Scientists, journalists, curious people. "Ladies and gentlemen," began Tesla, "for years you have heard that alternating current is dangerous. Tonight, I will prove that all of that is a lie." He raised his hands and touched 2 metallic arcs. Instantly, bolts of electricity began to dance over his body, blues and whites snaking across his arms, torso, head. The audience held its breath. Women screamed. A man fainted, but Tesla remained standing, smiling as 200,000 volts coursed through his body. It was then that he noticed something wrong. The frequency was different. The arcs became erratic. The current increased beyond safe parameters. Someone had sabotaged their equipment. Last year, Dr. Tesla understood everything in a split second. Edison, the spy, the sabotage. He had two choices: let go and admit that something was wrong, or continue and risk his life. If he stopped now, Edison would win. The story would be that Tesla almost killed himself trying to prove that alternating current was safe. Tesla closed his eyes. He felt the current increasing, his muscles contracting. The pain was coming, and then he did something unexpected. Instead of letting go of the bows, he gripped them tighter, and he started to sing. A Serbian song that his mother used to sing, about light overcoming darkness, about the soul being stronger than the body. The song slowed his heart. He regularized his breathing. He allowed his body to find a rhythm that harmonized with the uncontrolled current. Tesla was using biology itself as a frequency regulator. The seconds seemed like hours. The pain was immense, but he continued singing, controlling every heartbeat, and slowly the current stabilized. When he released the bows, the audience erupted into the most deafening applause they had ever heard. No one knew he had almost died. Backstage, Westinghouse was waiting for him in a panic. What happened? The meters went crazy. If I had stopped, Edison would have won, said Tesla. You almost died. Almost, but I didn't die. The news spread around the world. The electricity wizard, they called him. Alternating current has been declared safe. Contracts arrived from all corners. Edison watched everything from New York in silence. The spy returned expecting payment. Edison received him coldly. The job wasn't done. He survived. Get out. And if you tell anyone, your life will be over. Alone in his office, Edison felt something he had never felt for another human being: respect. And that infuriated him more than any defeat. In the following months, Tesla became an international celebrity, but he didn't celebrate. At night, he thought about the secret he had discovered about Edison years ago, the information that could destroy your rival. Several times he considered using it, but it always stopped, because he understood something that Edison would never understand. Winning through the destruction of others is not really winning. The secret remained kept, and Tesla turned his mind to something bigger, something that would make Chicago look like a candle in the sun. Transmit power wirelessly to the entire world. This project would have consequences that not even he could foresee. Shores, Colorado Springs, 1899. Tesla had built his most ambitious laboratory in the middle of nowhere, a wooden structure topped by a 200-foot metal tower that seemed to pierce the sky. There, far from the eyes of Edison and journalists, Tesla conducted experiments that defied everything science knew. He was trying to transmit electricity through the earth itself, without wires, without cables, without limits. On a stormy night, Tesla turned on his equipment at full power. 40-meter artificial beams exploded from the tower, illuminating the surrounding mountains as if it were daytime. Thunder was heard 20 kilometers away. Horses on neighboring farms panicked. People ran to churches thinking it was the end of the world. And then, as quickly as it started, everything stopped. Tesla had burned out the generator for the entire city of Colorado Springs, but he was smiling, because in that brief moment, he had proven it was possible. Wireless power was not a dream. It was physics. It was real. Now he just needed resources to build on a global scale. Back in New York, Tesla found the man who could finance his vision. J.P. Morgan, the most powerful banker in the world. Morgan was a pragmatic man, interested only in profits. But Tesla knew how to speak his language. Imagine, said Tesla in Morgan's plush office, a tower that transmits not just electricity, but information. Instant messaging to anywhere on the planet. Whoever controls that tower will control worldwide communication. Morgan leaned forward, eyes shining with the possibility of monopoly. How much do you need? $150,000. Morgan signed the check that afternoon. What Tesla didn't tell Morgan, what he didn't tell anyone, was his true intention. He didn't want to create a communication system controlled by a man. I wanted to create free energy for all humanity. Airborne electricity, available to anyone, anywhere, at no cost. It was the most generous vision ever conceived by a human mind, and it would be his undoing. Tesla began building the Wardenclyffe Tower on Long Island, a massive metal and wood structure, designed to be the center of energy transmission for the entire world. But costs escalated quickly. Morgan's $150,000 was gone. Tesla asked for more. Morgan refused. You told me it would be a communication system, Morgan said coldly. Now I hear rumors that they want to give free energy. Where's the profit in that? Tesla tried to explain. He tried to make Morgan see the magnitude of what he was creating. But Morgan was a businessman, not a visionary. If I can't put a meter on it, Morgan said, I'm not interested. Funding was cut. Tesla spent the next few years begging other investors. Nobody wanted to take on the project. The Wardenclyffe Tower remained unfinished, a monument to thwarted ambition. And then came the final blow. In 1905, Tesla's laboratory on Houston Street caught fire. Years of work, unique prototypes, irreplaceable notes, all consumed by flames. Tesla watched the fire from across the street, motionless. The firefighter who ran to him never forgot what he saw in the inventor's eyes. It wasn't despair. It was the look of a man who already knew this would happen. They finally did it, muttered Tesla. To this day, no one knows for sure what caused the fire. Accident, sabotage. Tesla has never publicly accused anyone, but he knew. Deep down, I always knew. The secret that Tesla had discovered about Edison years ago, the information that could have destroyed his rival, died in that fire along with everything else. Tesla never used it. He never stooped to the level of his enemy, and he paid the price for it. Tesla's final years were ones of loneliness and oblivion. He moved to the Hotel New Yorker, where he lived in a small room, surrounded only by pigeons that he fed in the window. The man who had lit up the world was now barely able to pay his rent. Edison died in 1931, celebrated as a national hero. Tesla sent a note of condolence to the family, without irony, without bitterness. Tesla died in 1943, alone at the age of 86. When they found his body, there was little more than papers and memories in the room. The American government immediately confiscated his documents, classifying them as state secrets. Many of these documents remain secret to this day. But the story doesn't end with Tesla's death, because everything you use today, every light bulb, every motor, every socket on your wall, runs on alternating current. The system that Tesla created, the system by which he gave up millions, the system that Edison tried to destroy. Tesla lost his fortune, lost recognition. He lost almost everything. But he won the war that really mattered. Every time you turn on a light, Tesla wins again. Every time a city lights up at night, his vision becomes reality, once again. The price of always wanting to be one step ahead is high. It's loneliness. It's misunderstanding. It's seeing the world resist the future that you know is inevitable. Tesla paid that price in full. But he understood something that few understand. The value of a life is not measured by what you accumulate, but by what you leave behind. Edison left a company. Tesla left a world. And if you're watching this video on an electrical device, in a bright room, connected to a continent-spanning power grid, you're living proof that Tesla was right. He saw the future before anyone else, and he had the courage to build it, even though he knew he might never live to enjoy it. That is the true measure of a genius. It is not seeing beyond others. It's lighting the way, so that others can see too. If this story touched something in you, if you recognize in Tesla something that you feel in yourself, the feeling of seeing what others don't see, of always being one step ahead of a world that isn't ready yet, subscribe to the channel. Because stories like this need to be told, and people like Tesla need to be remembered, not because of what they lost, but for what they gave us.